for letting hundreds of people into the waiting room. So thank you for coming in. We'll start in a minute. So how are we doing, Carl? Do we have a pretty full group?
We've got about 80 people. So we're gonna keep getting people in.
Yeah, so we have another 180 more to go. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to get started because we have a really packed agenda and we are recording this. So if people miss part of it, they can always listen to it. So welcome to this program. It's the second program in our Lunch and Learn series on clean energy funding, current and future federal and state opportunities by UW-Madison Extension's Community Economic Development Program. I'm Sherry Gruder, Sustainable Design and Energy Specialist with UW Extension. And I'm convening the series. And today our focus is on clean energy funding for local governments, tribes, schools, and nonprofit organizations. We are poised to make the most significant transformation since the Industrial Revolution that was powered by carbon fuels to a clean energy economy powered by renewables. With the passage of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, or law, known as Bill, and the Inflation Reduction Act, known as IRA, more funding than ever has been infused into the transformation of the power sector. Over the next 10 years, multiple paths to obtain funding for energy efficiency and renewable energy and clean transportation with direct support to include marginalized communities and to build a clean energy workforce will be made available. In this webinar, we want to make you aware of the funding, state and federal funding that's available to you now and on the horizon. We want to help you prepare to apply for it. And we want to make sure that Wisconsin brings in a lot of that funding to move us into this clean energy economy. So today you will learn from our expert panel. Their bios are on our webpage. Rose Daddy is our Midwest Regional Intergovernmental and External Affairs Specialist for the U.S. Department of Energy. Maria Redmond is the Director of the Governor's Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy. Mel Askey is a Climate Specialist for the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate. And Heather Fagum is the Focus on Energy, Schools and Government and Ag Program Manager. So you're all in good hands. The presenter slides will be available. So anything you don't get from written down, you'll be able to look back at the slides. And the program is also being recorded. Please put your questions in the chat. We do have a question and answer period at the end of the program, and we will take your questions then. And our first speaker is Rose Daddy. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you so much, Sherry, to you and your team there at University of Wisconsin. And I think I just went really, the lighting is not working here, but I'm going to be sharing my screen here. See. You don't have to worry about looking at me. And again, my name is Rose Dottie. I am the Midwest Regional Specialist for the Department of Energy. Big, long title, but basically your front door at DOE for any questions that you might have relating to funding opportunities or anything really that you might need at the Department of Energy. So let me just start by saying that the Biden-Harris administration knows that this is the greatest challenge that that not only just our nation, but our entire planet is facing is climate change. We're really working aggressively to advance these goals around driving the US to a 100% clean energy and net zero emissions by 2050. It helps having state and local climate leadership that really gets it. Governor Evers and his team are really focused on that, and there's just a plethora of resources that are available at the state level. This, and again, don't have to worry about taking notes. All of these slides will be available afterwards. As well as if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is the funding that we have available for state and local entities. As you see, we have millions of dollars that are available and that are coming down the line. One of the things that we have is our building codes funding, which the deadline has passed. There was some competitive funding that was available, $225 million. That is under review, and we will be announcing funding coming soon. We also have our revolving loan fund, $250 million in formula funding going to the states. Wisconsin's allocation, as you can see, is over $1.8 million. We have $8.8 million in home energy rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act. These are formula grants to states and Indian tribes to implement residential, single family and multifamily energy efficiency and electrification. These funds will be made available through your state energy office. We have our joint office of between a Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation, which manages $7.5 billion in bill funding for the deployment of a national network of EV chargers. Last year, we approved deployment plans that was submitted by all 50 states, DC, and all of our territories. The 2023 formula funding is $16 million for Wisconsin. We have IRA EV tax rebates, where at the point of a sale, you get $7,500 for the purchase of a new clean vehicle. If it is a used vehicle, you can get $4,000, which is effective now. We also have $7,500 to $40,000 for commercial fleet vehicles that are clean energy. Our EECBG program formula grants are available now. There is $130 million funding available for EECBG. We love acronyms at the federal government. So that was what we use there. And this is a formula funding that can go to fund all types of projects. You can be very creative in your projects. The total appropriation is $550 million. $431.2 million is available for over 2,700 eligible entities, and that includes local governments, states and territories, and tribal communities. We also have $8.8 million available for competitive grants for those that are not eligible for the formula grants. And that's just because of due to a population size. As you can see, there's under the formula grants, there's very specific things that entities have to meet, and that's why we've set aside about 2% of this funding to make sure that everyone that is eligible is able to use these funds. And this just talks about some example of some of the things that you can use the funding for. There is just added by IIJA programs for financing, purchasing energy efficiency, renewable energy, and zero emission transportation measures. So tribal communities can choose between formula grants and vouchers. There's a whole reasoning between whether they would choose grants or choose vouchers. And if you wanted to have more conversations about that, we can definitely set up some time later to talk about that. These are some more funding opportunities that tribal communities are available to them. Like I said, you will get these slides at the end. So, and if there's something that you have questions on, please feel free to reach out to me. The industrial centers program expansion is something that this new funding is going to be expanding. We're going to have an additional 5 regional centers of excellence, and they will most likely be at community colleges, universities, and trade schools. And this is to help with training and education, resources, grants, and technical assistance offerings around clean energy. So we also are putting a lot of investment into environmental justice and clean energy transition. There's our Justice 40 initiative, which the president signed as an executive order, and across all the federal family, 40% of all of these clean energy dollars have to be given to disadvantaged communities, which are communities that have been traditionally underinvested. The priorities that we have are listed here for Justice 40, but it includes making sure that we decrease energy burdens in disadvantaged communities, create access to clean energy jobs and job training for individuals that live there, as well as increasing energy resilience and energy democracy. All of these projects included with Justice 40, you have to make sure that you have a community benefit plan. The community benefit plan has a set of 4 policy priorities, which stand for investing in America's workforce, engaging communities and labor, advancing diversity and inclusion, and making sure that Justice 40 is implemented. Now, to provide more accountability, all of these community benefit plans will be posted on DOE's website. But don't fear, if you have any issues about what the heck is a community benefit plan, what exactly is going to be included in this, we have a webinar, we have a number of community benefit resources that you can tap into to make sure that you are coming up with stellar community benefit plans. So as we talk about communities in transition and how they thrive, there is a number of opportunities that we can repurpose old industry into new industry. And we have an office set up to make sure that we're able to provide funding there. There's a number of options for clean energy evolution where we include solar and wind, thermal energy, hydrogen, and more. One of the things that we have for rural and remote areas is the ERA, which is authorized by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And this is funded through 2026. We provide financial assistance to improve in rural and remote areas, resiliency, energy and environmental protections from the adverse impacts of energy generation. And as you see with the eligible uses of funds, there are a number of things that you can use this for. Now, this was released a couple weeks ago. The concept papers are due April 14th and applications will be due June 28th. And again, we're going to be getting this slide, so don't worry about taking any notes. One of the things that we have that we just released is our Energy Rural Community Prize, which is $15 million available for individuals and organizations. And I'm really excited about this one because the recipients can be tribal and local governments, as well as financial institutions, utilities, industry professionals, and universities. This is, there's two tracks for this. There's a partner track, which connects rural and remote communities to government funding, technical assistance, and a network of partners that can help implement these clean energy demo projects. We also have a finance track, which is $5 million to come up with innovative mechanisms that are able to help communities access capital or develop their own community ownership models to be able to finance these clean energy demos. We have our CAEML provision overview, which there is $500 million available through 2026. And that is going to be up to 5 clean energy projects, with at least 2 of those projects being solar. The emphasis will be on economic development and environmental justice that lasts beyond the project's lifeline. All of these projects must be geographically diverse. And it is supposed to be on current and former mine land. And I will just say, keep your eyes peeled because that will be coming out soon. When we say clean energy project, it has to have one or more of the technologies that is listed, which includes solar, microgrids, and the others. Mine land is defined as land subject to SMCRA or the mining laws of 1872. We also have a number of loan programs that are available for retooling and repurposing energy infrastructures that have ceased operations, or any energy infrastructure that is going to be repurposed to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases.
Pardon me, Rose, you've got about a minute left.
Okay, well, I can end there. I don't want to take up too much time.
Well, this is all really important, and I know that people will be able to see all the rest of them, all the rest of the offerings in the slides, and also be able to ask questions at the end. So thank you. Right now, Maria Redmond's going to speak and help you with how to put together a good grant proposal.
All right, so are you seeing my slide and hearing me okay? I'm hoping.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So I promised Sherry that I would get through 31 slides in 17 minutes. So here we go. So really today I'm here to talk to you about grant preparation, about the response and how to work through federal funders and lots of funding, all of these funding opportunities, and then also provide you with a list of resources. I'm not going to go through every slide in like word by word. I'm just going to kind of go through each one. And like Rose mentioned, we are going to make sure that you get copies of the slide and are able to use it as a resource. So I'm starting from the very basics. So that really the idea of grants and funding opportunities is that you take an idea locally and you put it into a proposal and convince the funder that they need to fund the project. And so you have to make sure that you do your necessary homework to make sure that this project is feasible. And also make sure that you articulate your organization's capabilities of making the project happen. Really, you need to not only address the needs of the funding agency, but you also want to make sure that it complements your own strategic planning and organizational planning. Really, the idea further enhances and strengthens your goals as part of your strategic efforts as it relates to anything you're working on, if it's health, environmental issues, energy issues, you know, there's grants for lots of humanities, social issues. There's grants all over the board for folks. And so we really want to give you that basic kickstart to be able to organize yourself. So one thing is really knowing your organization, the history of your organization. Where did your business start? Where did the organization start? If you're a local government, obviously you've probably been around for quite a while, but knowing the structure of your organization and the gaps that need to be filled, the problems that need to be solved. The other part of this is leadership. Who is going to make, who is part of the decision-making processes, and who can be held accountable for the work that would be associated with any grant? Who's capable of taking on the project? There's going to be a lot of folks who, in particular, say rural areas, that aren't going to have the necessary capacity to be able to take on a project. So what are the options that you might have to be able to do that? Additionally, you want to look at your overall budget. So you're going to want to know like how much you want to ask for, and also look to your annual reports or any sort of reporting that you do to get the information that you need and to be able to communicate out your needs, but also ensure success and the capability of your organization to be able to carry out the deliverables of a project. All proposals come from an original idea. So the most successful proposals are going to be concepts that have been dreamed of, discussed with others, and thought about before work on the grant proposal begins. A lot of times they'll stem from critical episodes such as organizational changes, new initiatives and innovations, successful launch of a new program or new approach, also even traumatic events such as major budget cuts or things like that that can really disrupt an organization. So identifying those local needs and local issues help you to solve a problem and get the funding that you need. So you want to explore that idea. You want to identify those gaps, gather information. Anecdotal information generally is not the best, like, well, I've experienced this myself. And you're going to want more than anecdotal statements, because you're going to want basic information collected through surveys, research, official records that will back up what you're asking for. Breaking down the data, breaking down the idea. A lot of funders are not likely to fund an entire project. You want to be able to break down a project into pieces. So I always give the example of Sugar Creek Elementary Energy Project. The total cost you came out with was $1 million. So you can break it down into different projects. Like, what's that total cost of the project is 1 million, but project 1 is solar, project 2 is electric school buses, project 3 is lighting upgrades, project 4 is the new efficient HVAC system. So if you break down the project, when you're going to ask for funding, you can, if there's enough funding to ask for it all, like the EECBG funding probably would cover the energy efficiency block grant funding, would probably cover all of these projects. But there are going to be other funding where it's going to be very specific to a certain technology, for example. So being able to break it down is really helpful. Also, further develop the concept, you want to define goals, and you want them to be SMART, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. And they really should address what you need, and also address the population served, and it could address, like, it could also extend out to population served, behavior modified, or community changes. So your metrics could be built around those things, like you're solving a problem and it has this impact on the community. Oh yeah, one of the things, sorry, I had a note, and I think this is really important. Don't seek funding to just seek funding. It's one of the poorest reasons to write a proposal. Make sure that you're writing a proposal that seeks funding for a specific purpose. So really you want to develop that concept further, that you want to define outcomes that are increase, expand, improve. How do you define success? Is it quantitative or is it qualitative? Does it change behavior or condition? Is there data available to show the impact if you were able to implement a particular program, that there would be a change in data and an improvement in the system that you're trying to improve? And really being able to outline these outcomes provides you a fulfillment of and shows success for the particular program. Develop your project budget. You want to make sure that you have a clearly identified budget with a budget breakdown of all of these different types of costs. And also a really, really useful tool is a logic model. And so I'm not gonna go through and read all of these, but I'll give you a quick example. Say, for example, you want to get a grant for community education related to clean energy. You have the resources available as the input. You define your activities. As you start to move forward with those activities, you're going to have outputs like meetings, connecting with people. You'll have showing that you're delivering what you propose, and then you'll have the outcomes. And those outcomes will have impacts on your community. And just say you're doing community outreach on clean energy and you went through all these steps, when you get to the end, you realize that after all this community outreach, is a really huge interest in community solar. So you start back at the beginning and looking like you have the network in place, you have another funding opportunity, and you go through this process again. It really provides you with the content you need to be able to apply for funding and plan around funding. This is a grant preparation checklist. What I suggest is having these pieces ready before you even apply for a grant. You can put all of this information together prior to any grant proposal coming out. So really getting yourself organized so that you can respond in a timely manner. There's a ton of grant funding coming federally. We're super excited about the infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. Some of the suggestions that we have to prepare for these federal grants is to create a collaborative network, a team, a stakeholder working group, and making sure that you're being strategic and inclusive in that process. If you're from a rural community or your rural organization, you have limited staff, find a grant writing partner. There's a number of jurisdiction, political subdivisions, jurisdictions, organizations that are helping folks to work together to apply for funding. Get your numbers together, annual energy usage, carbon footprint, LMI households, disadvantaged households, so that you can address the Justice 40 initiative. Seek assistance from your partners, example like utilities. And then also being aware of the mechanism to get the information to the grantor. Like doing that well ahead of time will help save some heartburn later on when you're applying for a grant. So lucky for me, Rose mentioned the EECBG application, the Energy Efficiency Block Grant. And I put a link here. I'm missing the C in there, but just laying out the tribal nations, local government, states will be getting funding. And so I'm defining these as pre-application steps. Check to see if you're an eligible entity, if you're going to move forward with a grant or a voucher, and determine your eligibility and your route. Organize and gather information. So that will feed into the description of your goals for energy efficiency and conservation for your jurisdiction. So again, like these are some of the things that Rose mentioned that you, if you're interested and you have these goals, start collecting some of that information. Build a network of partners, utilities. I put utilities twice in there. Utilities are very important. Energy industry, financial companies, community-based organizations, NGOs. And coordinate with the state. There are some requirements actually for local governments to coordinate with the state and also to connect with your neighboring counties and municipalities on their plans. So making sure that you're networking and have knowledge of what the state is doing as well as your neighbors. And then also making sure that you understand the benefits to the disadvantaged communities in your area and supporting and explaining how your project will impact that Justice 40 initiative, which I spelled incorrectly. I'm so sorry. So the next one, I'm prepared. I've done all of this. Now I get to write my proposal. I've got all my ducks in a row. So you're going to see the grant requests coming out. Rose mentioned a number of grant requests and upcoming grant requests initiated by the funder. They're going to be a specific set of criteria for the funder, and you have to be very diligent in the pre-writing phase, be able to be responsive to fit your idea to fit the funder's request. And no matter how much you like your own format, make sure you follow their format. Sample contents of a proposal. I'm not going to read them all to you. I will share these slides so you can see. There's a lot of different contents. Make sure you pay attention to the detail. Always determine your eligibility first. If you're not eligible, you can partner with someone who's eligible. Even the simple things like format, number of pages, character size, make sure you check your spelling, math, grammar, all of those. And don't try to impress the funder with extensive vocabulary to the point of making your proposal unreadable. Make sure you use, just keep it simple, and also be careful with jargon that you may be familiar with that's technical to you, inside terminology, because people from outside the organization or outside your realm of what you work in might be reviewing these proposals and might not fully understand some of the jargon or acronyms or things like that. And just make sure you go over your package completely. So before you press submit, just make sure you review, look at your checklist, make sure you understand what the funder wants submitted and how they want it submitted, and then follow the rules of the funder's submission requirements, and make sure you receive a response from the funder once your application has been received. So your response, you've submitted it, you're waiting, positive, they want you to come back. Now comes the work. Careful what you sign up for, right? It's really exciting to get a positive review of a grant, but that also requires work. So you'll move into contract negotiation, contract development, and then you start moving forward with your project. Negative, if you get a response back that's negative, it's okay. What I always say is you actually have worked on a concept and have put the parameters in around a specific concept, and you could potentially use that concept for a later funding opportunity, or talking to the legislature, whatever you have the organization. So don't give up. If the funder will provide you a brief, seek it, a briefing of why, or a summary of why you weren't awarded. Also reevaluate your process, and at the appropriate time, try again. Either result, keep writing grants. It's definitely worth that extra effort. So I'm not going to go through all of these slides. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. For local, state, and federal resources, a lot of the funders, everything's mission driven. There's different levels of accountability and requirements. Every grant has responsibility, so don't take on more work than you can handle. And make sure you stay organized so you can respond quickly, and then always be aware of registration times. This is a long list of different resources related to the federal funding, both Bill and IRA. Make sure that you know make sure that you get signed up for grants.gov and SAM. There's a lot of each federal agency and each funder has different systems. So you want to make sure that you know that system and you get registered in that system right away. It does take a little time to get registered, but once you're registered, you're good to go. State resources, a lot of state resources available. I'm providing links for you for that. State funding, there's lots of grants available. There's a lot of state opportunities, and we're trying to build out more of those state opportunities through the governor's executive budget. There's a couple of different programs related to clean energy and small business incubators. There's a lot of funding proposals in there. So we're hoping that those pass so that we'll have additional state funding to support your efforts. Also, local resources, there's a funding guides available from our university system, as well as Marquette. And then there's subscriptions and consultants available. Usually there's a cost. There's a list of organizations and businesses that offer grant services to local governments located on the League of Wisconsin Municipalities website. And that is all.
Wonderful. Thank you for staying on time. I appreciate it. Lori, if we could get Mel's slides put up. So now we're going to hear about something that is a wonderful change that came with IRA, which is direct pay for nonprofit organizations, because a lot of municipalities and nonprofits couldn't get funding by getting tax rebates before, but now there's a way for them to do it. And Mel's going to talk to you about that.
Hey everyone, I'm Melanie Aske. I'm a climate specialist with the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change. I'm going to go to the first slide. And advance it. Okay, so today, continuing on this discussion, my focus is on the Inflation Reduction Act and how you can access direct pay, and then sort of explore the case study, how you can calculate your eligible tax credits through the Inflation Reduction Act. So first off, what's direct pay? This is awesome. It's an option for tax exempt entities to receive their tax credits via check because they're not filing taxes. 2/3 of the Inflation Reduction Act benefits are through tax credits. And if you are a tax exempt entity, the example here on the slide is a nonprofit, but you could also be a government institution. You could be a faith community. Anyone who doesn't file normal taxes, they would previously not have been able to take advantage of available tax credits. Direct pay changes that. Through the US Treasury, there's going to be an application available. So if you are eligible for tax credits because of the projects you completed, you will be able to instead receive a check in the mail. So this process is not fully set up yet. The forms are not available, but projects can still start happening now. You just can't receive your reimbursement check yet. So this is a really important way that the IRA is helping nonprofits and other organizations take advantage of the available incentives that they may not otherwise be able to take advantage of. So let's go next slide. So here's a breakdown. Inflation Reduction Act, there are a lot of tax credits that are available for your renewable energy projects. This is sort of just an example chart of what the different categories of incentives are, like the base rates for what you get. So we're going to use a case study in a second, but just broadly, there are kind of couple of considerations for what credits you're entitled to receive based on your project specifications. So if you are, the first level of distinction is whether you're less than or over 1 megawatt, if you have a renewable energy project. So if you're less than, your base credit is at 30% because you don't need to meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. And then you can see on the left-hand column there that there are additional add-ons for credit based on other things like domestic content, et cetera. I don't have time to get into all the specifications there for what constitutes prevailing wage, but I'll have my website at the last slide so you can take a look in more detail on our website. So just following along, if you're less than 1 megawatt, you don't need to meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, but if you're over, to take full advantage of the tax credits, you would need to meet the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements, and that would be giving you a 30% tax credit for your project, adding on additional ones from there. Conversely, if you don't meet those wage and apprenticeship requirements, you can still take advantage, but the base rate is at 6%. That would be the middle column there. What I want to point out here is that go to at the bottom of the slide, the tax exempt financing. If you're, for example, a government institution and you paid for your project via bond funding, that was already tax exempt funding. So basically the government is saying you can't double dip, and you have to add up the total of what you would have been eligible for and subtract 15% off of that because they don't want you getting reimbursed for taxes you didn't pay. So that's a little confusing. So let's go into a case study. You want to advance the slide. Forest Edge Elementary School. This is the first net zero school in Wisconsin. It is beautiful. And also it has all these amazing sustainable features. It has geothermal, solar, battery storage, and I want to advance the slide. The project in totality cost $2.5 million. So let's take a look into what the direct pay would have been had they been able to complete the project after IRA was instituted. So the project is over 1 megawatt because you're combining the solar and the geothermal together. So they would need to meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. Assuming they were able to do that, our preliminary understanding is that that is not too high of a burden to bear to continue with the project. Assuming they met that, and you did meet also the domestic content requirements, this is the left-hand column, then you would get an additional 10% credit on top of that 30%. So your subtotal would be 40% off the project cost. But wait, they used tax exempt financing to pay for this project. So what you do, you take the 40% of the subtotal, and then you take 15% of that, and that's 6%. So the subtotal, instead of 40% direct pay, would be 40% minus 6% for a total of 34%. So what is 34% of 2.5 million? That's 850,000. So that's how you would calculate what your direct pay would be. And then you can see that the total project cost is that much lower. On the flip side, if you were not able to meet domestic content requirements, then you would just stay at 30%. That's totally fine. And then your tax exempt financing 15% rule still applies. So you would subtract 4.5% for that. And so that's 30% minus 4.5%, 25.5%. So your direct pay would be a little bit lower, but still significant at 637,500. Let's advance the slide. One more quick example of how this works, McFarland Public Safety Building. This is a rendering that's not built yet, but it will house the fire and rescue, municipal court, and police departments. It will also be net zero and have the geothermal and solar. The total project cost is estimated to be about 3.3 million. So advance the slide. So same deal applies. The total project cost is at the top. This project is under 1 megawatt, so it does not need to meet prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. So the same calculations apply. If you meet domestic content requirements, then you can add additional 10%. So it's, again, the subtotal is a 34% credit because they also used bond funding to finance this project. And the direct pay would then 34% of 3.3 million is 1,139,000. So your project cost just came down from over 3 million to only a little over 2. That's huge. And still significant if you don't meet the domestic content requirements. There, the subtotal would remain at 30%. And again, 25.5% would be what you're eligible for under IRA. And the direct pay is going to come out to $854,250. So that's great. Advance the slide. I only had 5 minutes. This is really confusing stuff. Go to our website for more information, DaneClimateAction.org/federal funding. My email is ask.melanie@countyofdane.com. We can help break some of this down if you have specific questions on how to calculate any of this, or if you're have additional follow-up questions after looking at our website. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Melanie. That's great information. And so my name is Heather Fagum. I assume you can see my slides.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Heather Fagum. I'm with Focus on Energy. I'm going to talk a little bit today about offerings for the local government, tribe, and schools that are currently available that can be combined with any of the offerings that Melanie and Rose have mentioned and Maria had mentioned earlier in the hour. So again, Focus on Energy, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction, talk about our rebates and incentives, and then some resources that are available. So Focus on Energy is unique because it's a statewide system for the energy efficiency and renewable energy support for Wisconsin. We include over 100 utilities and work with residents and businesses, providing both financial incentives and then also education and incentives available. One of the really great things about Focus on Energy in combination with all of these additional federal opportunities is all of the funding can be stacked. And I'll talk a little bit more about this after I talk about the prescriptive and custom structure that we have. So Focus on Energy, again, I had mentioned that we provide energy incentives, but we also are an unbiased third party that can provide information and technical assistance and help you identify and implement your projects. We can help coordinate energy teams, help train your facilities staff. We can help improve your return on investment or help you figure out what your return on investment is and support your energy education. So going directly into those incentives and rebates, so really high level of information. So I will direct you to additional resources and you'll again have access to these slides. But just to start with our prescriptive rebates, this is specific dollar amounts that are available for energy efficient equipment. Typically, it's a more simple change out of equipment, 1-for-1. You put in a light, you take out a light, you put in a new light. That's eligible for an incentive. Boilers, those are great examples of prescriptive rebates. Everything is in our. All of that information is in this link for focusonenergy.com/catalogs that you can find all of the information about our prescriptive incentives. The one key thing about this is that you can install your equipment, but you do have to provide, fill out the application and submit it within 60 days of the project installation. So that can be a little bit different than those direct pay timelines that Melanie had mentioned, and a little bit different than some of the federal timelines. So a prescriptive incentive, it has to be submitted for Focus on Energy within 60 days. If your project isn't eligible for a prescriptive incentive, you can use our custom incentive track. Again, that's offered when a prescriptive incentive isn't available. This one does require pre-approval. So you work with an energy advisor, and I'll share an energy advisor map later in my slides, and identify what your energy incentives will be based on the energy saved in the first year. Have to get that pre-approved, and then you're locked into that funding, and Focus on Energy will hold that for you in the year that it'll get done. I should mention also those prescriptive incentives. If you're applying for some of these federal projects or federal grants, you can get pre-approval for your prescriptive incentives as well, if it helps you kind of lock in all of your financing and get that project identified. Like Maria was saying, you can identify your projects and all your funding sources and lock in your Focus on Energy incentives as well. If you're looking at integrating renewable energy, we have a couple different opportunities. The first is custom incentives available for essentially anything other than solar PV on the renewable energy spectrum. Biogas, biomass, solar thermal, wind are great examples of what we have custom incentives for. And you can see the incentive rates on the right-hand side of the slide. That follows the same custom process I had talked about a few minutes ago. Again, needs pre-approval, and you're identifying how much energy you're going to generate in the first year. The solar photovoltaic incentives are available through our Renewable Rewards program, and that is an incentive based on your KW size. So you are eligible for up to $50,000 for your project at your business. Business also includes our local governments, schools, tribal nations. Now, along with all of these, we have a lot of additional opportunities to help you plan your projects, help you assess for your projects, and really help you get that plan that Maria was mentioning in her discussion. So just a few good examples: project planning bonus. You work with your energy advisor and list out your projects. They will help you identify your return on investment for those projects and work with you to identify what your incentive will be for that project. And then you get an additional bonus from Focus on Energy for working directly with your energy advisor. We have project assessment opportunities for custom applications, biogas facilities. If you have municipal water pumps you want to assess, or your wastewater plants, there are project assessment opportunities that help you identify or help you assess your systems and pay usually between 50 and 90% of your assessment. Some really great whole building optimization incentives through retro commissioning and whole building tune-up to help make sure you're operating efficiently. And then benchmarking. We work with our school and government customers to help benchmark your facilities. We work with about 10 customers per year. Our year is we offer this between July and June. And so another opportunity will be coming out in the upcoming months to start a new benchmarking initiative in July here. We also have tribal enhanced incentives for project planning and energy planning. And then we have a really great competition for our schools. That's the K-12 Energy Challenge in coordination with KEEP, K-12 Energy Education Program, and Renew Our Schools. A few resources I'll mention. I have mentioned our energy advisors before, but we have 8 of them throughout the state, and they are great in helping you identify your energy savings opportunities, help you with your energy teams, energy plans, help you with some of the resources that are available. They're also local to you, so they can identify and create teams. And if you need additional help or need support from local entities, they can help connect. And they are also, again, I mentioned they can complete energy savings estimates and help you apply for those custom incentives. This is the map. You'll have access to this. It's also on the Focus on Energy website. And then if you're looking for additional information on how to save energy, we have a lot of training sessions available in person and on demand. And then we also have a school and government best practices guide that you can flip through and help identify the projects available. And here's my contact information.
Thank you so much, Heather, and everyone. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to answer your questions. There were several questions in the chat. I can see that Rose has answered a number of them already, although I think it would be helpful for others to hear the answers to some of them. So one of the questions was, is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant Program available to school districts? Maria, Rose, if you want to answer that, or even address what is available to school districts, that could be helpful.
So the thing is that EECBG funding is available only to state, local, and tribal governments. Like I said, we do have other funding that is available depending on the school and the location, and I can follow up on that as we talk about K through 12 schools or higher education as well.
Okay, good. So there was a question about Justice 40 and how it's being implemented in Wisconsin. I'd like to point out that we are going to have a program in this series specifically on equity, inclusion, and Justice 40. But it's still worth repeating and speaking about now. So I know, well, both Rose and Maria could address that. I know Maria's been working on something for our state, and Rose is actually going to speak on the program about Justice 40 for us too.
But I would let Rose take this one because it is a federal initiative. So I think she's probably going to have the most concrete information. I'm on the reactionary side of it, trying to work on the community engagement and helping with the community benefits plans as part of some of the applications.
So in short, all of the funding that comes through clean energy opportunities that are under Justice 40, the Justice 40 provisions, they have to follow the federal guidelines as far as making sure that 40% of all the funding goes to into disadvantaged communities with the priorities that I listed. I also shared a number of resources earlier with Sherry that she posted to the website, and in that there's a lot of resources on Justice 40. It talks about where these disadvantaged communities are, how they were determined, and how it's being implemented, just like really kind of getting into the weeds, which I won't do on this website, but I mean on this webinar, because I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Okay, Rose, as a follow-up question, sorry, Sherry, I just want to kind of, is there a way to clarify in some conversations for Justice 40, we've heard it's 40% of the benefits of the investment in the community, not necessarily 40% of the funding. So there's kind of some confusion as it relates to the funding. So if you have like a certain program that has a certain amount of funding, not necessarily 40% of that funding would be going to the community. It would be 40% of the benefits.
So including like the 40% of the benefits, when they say that, that's also talking about making sure that these particular type of companies are being used. And so like, and it's by provision, so it's not across the whole program. So each of the provisions have different, or each of the programs, it's a little weedy, but as the programs are rolled out, 40% of those, like we make sure that it's not just across the board, but going down to each of these different programs that come out.
Also, there are 2 programs that EPA is putting out that are environmental justice funding programs. And those are, the due date for those are actually April 14th for both of them. And one of them is a government to government program. And so it applies to tribes and to local governments. I posted that on the FGON Wisconsin website with a lot of detail. I would say that the federal government put together a tool to actually determine what environmental justice communities are. And so there's a link to that tool too. So that might be something that could be helpful for you to look at. And there's not a lot of time. There's only a month till that's due. So please, look that one up as well.
So that is one of the resources that I shared with Sherry yesterday, to make sure that it is posted.
Yeah, great. Okay. So let's see. One of the things we could do here is to, since we have a little, just a minute or two, is there anybody else, if you want to raise your hand, that has a question? Mike Troji, did you have a question still? I'm gonna unmute you. Mike, can you speak?
Hi, I don't think I had a question. My hand wasn't raised, but
Oh,
since you called on me, I will ask one. The domestic content, that does apply to the Buy America piece for these the federal funding aspects?
I'll take that preliminary. Yeah, we only have a couple minutes, so I don't have time to get into like the full specifications here, but yeah, in essence, what percentage of the components are American made.
Okay. Great program. Thank you very much.
thanks, Mike. Mike is with our tribes. Okay, so I think right now I'd like to wrap up and thank our knowledgeable speakers for presenting. And as we've said so many times, their slides are on the webpage. We are going to be launching that webpage as soon as we get the transcription, the recording of this webinar on it. So it'll be available to all of you. I'd also like to say that we're going to put out an evaluation. So I hope that you'll just take a few minutes to fill it out so we get some feedback about the program. Please consider attending some of the other programs in the series. Everybody lives in a house. So there's a program, a residential program. There's going to be one on clean transportation, as we said, on Justice 40, and also for businesses. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our co-sponsors, USDA Rural Development, Focus on Energy, PACE Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Office of Sustainability and Clean Energy, the Wisconsin Office of Energy Innovation, the Cooleyard Solar Foundation and the Solar on Schools program, Midwest Renewable Energy Association, and the Dane County Office of Energy and Climate Change. Thank you for contributing to this series. Finally, a big thank you to Brandon Hofstede, who's the Extension Community Economic Development Program Director, to Carl Green, who directs Extension's Local Government Center, and Lori Lindquist, our Administrative Assistant, for running this program behind the scenes, and Kristen Runge as well. So have a great day, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you in one of the other programs. Thank you, and we'll be available for you if you have follow-up questions as well. Thanks. Have a good day.